Ever had a neighbor who made you wonder if you were living in a soap opera? I mean, really, if your life got flipped upside down in a single afternoon, what would you do? Pack up and go? Stand your ground? Or maybe, just maybe take some notes, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and get ready for the fight of your life. Yeah, that's pretty much how this whole mess started for me. So let's set the scene. Whispering Pines Valley, Montana. I know it sounds made up, like something out of a postcard. Trust me, it's real enough. 847 folks. Give or take a couple more if you count the loons that call across Lake Serenity every sunrise. Smells like pine, looks like heaven. Sometimes you step outside and the mist on that lake, it's so still, it's like time hit the pause button. And that's what I always loved about this place. No matter how crazy the world got, it stayed the same. Or so I thought. I'm not new around here. Family's been settled on this land since 1924, back when my great-grandfather, Samuel Morrison, had hands like sandpaper and more grit than any man I've met since. He built our barn with nothing but sweat, neighborly help, and the kind of stubborn hope that just doesn't exist in city folks these days. You want to know what pride tastes like? It's the dust in the air when a 100-year-old barn still stands tall, every beam set by hand. Not a drop of glue or a nail wasted. That barn, well, I'll get to that. Let me tell you something else. Lake Serenity, the heart of our valley, isn't just some natural miracle. My great-grandfather helped build the dam that created it. Yeah, the Roosevelt administration, 1943, New Deal programs. Samuel shook hands with more politicians than he cared to admit, but he got that dam built. You ever wonder about the taste of real, clean water? The kind that makes you close your eyes and just listen? That's what we've had here. And for 80 years, 3 generations of Morrison hands have checked those dam controls every morning, every night, with a kind of reverence that's hard to explain unless you grew up with it. I'm 52 now, county hydraulic engineer, recently divorced. Don't feel too sorry. It's not that kind of story. My daughter Emma, she's a teenager, violin prodigy, sharper than a sack of tacks. She spends summers with me. Her vacation, she jokes, but I know she loves it. The barn was her spot. Acoustics in there, let's just say Bach never sounded better than bouncing off those old beams. Sometimes I'd stop what I was doing just to stand outside and listen. You know those moments you wish you could bottle up? That was one of them. But I guess no good thing lasts forever. Enter Melissa Thornfield. 45, Silicon Valley escapee. Hair that never moves. Smile sharp enough to slice through sheet metal. 18 months ago, she bought the most expensive property on the lake. Cash, of course, $2.3 million. You ever meet someone and just know they're here to change things, and not for the better? That's Melissa. She talks like a corporate PowerPoint, synergy, aesthetic improvement, stakeholder value, while looking at the rest of us like we're quaint but disposable extras in her big-budget production. Her husband, Marcus, is a lawyer, the kind who can make good morning sound like a legal threat. They started recruiting other out-of-towners, moneyed folks, to take over the HOA board. You could feel the air change, no more handshakes and how's your mom at meetings. Now it was all rules, votes, and, get this, aesthetic standards. You see where this is going, right? The first shot fired wasn't subtle. Melissa stood up at the board meeting, designer suit, PowerPoint clicker, the whole deal, and announced that my family's barn, the very one Samuel built, violated the new sightline requirements. Disrupts the view for premium properties, she said, like she was ordering lunch. Didn't matter that the barn had stood for a century, or that it was part of the landscape itself. Permits? Who needed them in 1924? But that's the hammer she used, a technicality, wielded like a sledge. The vote was 6-1. Guess who the one was? Emma's violin became our anthem of protest. She played louder every night, windows open, music drifting out across the lake, pure defiance. And let me tell you, those tools in the barn, worn smooth by 3 generations. Each one told a story. But it wasn't enough. The morning they sent the crew to tear down my barn, I tasted defeat for the first time in my life. Dust and diesel in my mouth, the sound of wood splintering echoing across the valley. I tried to stand tall, said all the right things, smiled for the cameras, yes, ma'am, but inside something snapped. And what stung the most wasn't just the loss of a building. It was realizing that the assault wasn't just on me, it was on all the families like mine. You ever see a pattern, then wish you hadn't? The Chens, who'd been here since the 70s, suddenly got cited for their vegetable garden, too visible. The Rodriguezes, fined for excessive truck repairs. The Patels' fruit stand, now a violation of commercial activity rules. And Melissa's Facebook group, Whispering Pines Beautification, was really a blacklist. It was like watching a slow-motion eviction, one family at a time. Financially, that barn wasn't just sentimental. 40 grand worth of ranch equipment, my granddad's 52 Ford, Emma's dream prom ride, gone. But the real loss? Our history, wiped away like it never mattered. That night, Emma cried. "Dad, they're trying to delete us," she said. "Yeah, kid, you're not wrong." It was then I realized this wasn't just about my barn. It was about the soul of the valley. And here's the kicker. Melissa had no clue what she was up against. Federal infrastructure agreements from 1943? She probably thought that was ancient history, some yellowed contract in a dusty drawer. But those agreements gave us powers that outlast any local rule, any HOA, any county ordinance. My great-grandfather wasn't just building for himself. He was setting us up to fight battles he couldn't imagine. Melissa? She didn't even pause to gloat. The same week, she filed noise complaints. My 6 a.m. chores violated quiet hours. Marcus sent a certified letter, $500 a day in fines for disturbing the peace. You ever read something so smug it makes you laugh? The letterhead alone probably cost more than my tractor. And yet, here's her big mistake. Melissa loved posting about everything. Photos of unsightly ranch equipment, captions about bringing civilization to the wilderness. Her Tesla cruising past at odd hours, phone pressed to the glass, documenting her struggle. I figured, fine, you want to play at war? Let's see how you like it when someone starts digging. 3 nights at the county courthouse, courtesy of stale coffee and microfilm, so old it probably remembered the New Deal itself. I found records. Oh, did I find records? The Hendricks family, who'd owned Melissa's lot before, pressured to sell after their taxes tripled out of nowhere, then funneled through a holding company before it landed in Melissa's hands, for cheap. Smell that? That's corruption, strong enough to peel paint. But buried in my own deed was the gold. Perpetual agricultural use rights. Older than the HOA, older than most of the houses. That right? You can't vote it away. When you inherit land, you inherit power, sometimes more than you know. So, I started connecting with the other old-timers. Mrs. Chun, sharp as ever, kept notes so meticulous the IRS could take lessons. Every HOA meeting, every sneaky vote, every crisis manufactured out of thin air, she had it all. You want a twist? Melissa reported me to the state environmental agency, claimed my cattle were polluting the lake. The same lake her mansion sits beside, the lake my family literally built and maintained. Irony, you're killing me. But I had the receipts. Decades of water conservation documentation, flow studies, you name it. Emma and I doubled down. She tracked Melissa's Facebook posts. Dad, she posted about maximizing her lakefront investment the same day she filed that complaint. That kid, smart as a whip. The diner in town, our little HQ. Resistance grew over bitter coffee and shared stories. Mrs. Chun said Marcus was working the county assessor, trying to get taxes jacked up on old ranch families. Translation: drive us out, make room for new luxury homes. But here's the secret sauce: water rights. My great-granddad's deal with the feds gave us permanent operational authority over the dam. filed at every level, county, state, federal. Melissa could file all the lawsuits she wanted, but she was messing with the folks who literally control whether her mansion sits on a lake or a mudflat. And, as if on cue, my property taxes leaped from $12,000 to $84,000 overnight. Only mine and 2 other ranches. The HOA passed new rules. Want to fix your fence? $5,000, non-refundable. And Marcus Firm, what a coincidence, was the only qualified reviewer. But the real mind game? Melissa started parking at the end of my driveway, filming me drinking my morning coffee. I guess she thought she'd catch me waving at the sunrise? So, you get the idea. She's playing chess. Only problem? My family's been owning this board since before she was born. If you're still with me, maybe you're wondering, if you were in my boots, would you keep fighting? Would you walk away? Or would you dig in, roots deep as the pines that line Lake Serenity? Let me know, drop a comment, tell me where you're listening from. Because trust me, it only gets wilder from here. Now let me be clear, when I say Melissa was determined, I mean she had the energy of a cat with its tail on fire. She came after me from every angle, and each time it felt like I was peeling back another layer of her master plan. Ever tried to play defense when the rules change every day? That's what life felt like. Take this for example. After the barn came down, Melissa wasted no time. The ink was barely dry on the demolition complete report when I started getting certified mail about quiet hours violations. The letter read, "We expect compliance from all residents to ensure the peaceful enjoyment of our community." Enjoyment, right, unless you're trying to enjoy the sound of your own rooster crowing, apparently. Her husband, Marcus, must have had a template for these things. The letters all sounded like ransom notes with a Harvard Law degree. The man's signature? You'd think it belonged on the Declaration of Independence. Sometimes I'd laugh, other times, well, let's just say I had to keep my hands busy to keep from throwing the coffee mug. But here's where the story turns. Melissa couldn't just keep it between the HOA and me. No, she had to make a public show of it, posting pictures of my eyesore ranch equipment on her social media, stirring up the new folks with warnings about declining property values. She even had the gall to snap drive-by videos of my place at 7 a.m. and upload them with dramatic captions about preserving the pristine wilderness. Meanwhile, her Tesla's whirring by, cell phone up, looking like she's about to call the National Guard. I decided, fine. If she wants to play hardball, I can do research. I spent 3 nights straight at the county courthouse. Don't let anyone tell you all-nighters are just for college kids, digging through property records. I survived on bad coffee and a stubborn streak I'd inherited from my great-granddad. My eyes burned from squinting at old microfilm, but I found something that changed everything. The Hendricks place, Melissa's property, had a strange paper trail. Old Tom Hendricks didn't want to sell, but suddenly his taxes tripled. Then, poof, his property changed hands through a shell company, sold to Melissa for less than anyone else had paid in a decade. Smelled fishier than the bait shop down the road. But the real gold? Buried deep in my own deed, a clause granting my family perpetual agricultural use rights. 70 years older than any HOA in this valley. You want to talk about ironclad? This was the real thing. Mineral rights, water rights, use rights, all running with the land, immune to a room full of PowerPoint presentations. If you're listening and you've inherited land, dig up those old papers. Sometimes your family's best defense is a signature in faded ink. I started meeting up with other old-timers. Turns out we were all under attack. The Chens had their vegetable garden cited. The Rodriguezes fined for fixing up their trucks. The Patels' loveliest family you'll ever meet got their roadside fruit stand shut down for commercial activity. Melissa's real plan? Clear out the folks who built this valley so her developer buddies could swoop in. Mrs. Chun, bless her heart, had meeting notes that would make a court reporter jealous. She'd been writing everything down, Every vote, every strange motion, every sly smile from Melissa. Her handwriting? So neat it looked typed. She brought her files to the diner one Saturday morning, spread them out on the table, and we all stared like we'd just seen a ghost. That was the day we realized we weren't alone, and we weren't crazy. Then came the environmental complaint. Melissa, who wouldn't know a Hereford from a Holstein, reported me to the state. Claimed my cattle were polluting the very lake my family had built. The irony nearly choked me. But that's the game. Attack, 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 until the other side gives up or gives in. I had decades of records, going back to my granddad's water flow logs, every meter reading, every conservation project. You know what else? That morning, standing by the dam, the hum of the pumps was like a heartbeat. My family's heartbeat. It made me realize we didn't just own land here. We protected this valley. Emma, my daughter, was my ace. She pored over Melissa's social media. "Dad, look at this," she said one night, waving her laptop. Melissa posted about maximizing lakefront investment. On the same day, she filed the environmental complaint. "It's not about noise or cows or even the barn," Emma said. "It's about money. It always is." The girl was right. I started building a case file. Every photo, every email, every HOA threat into a manila folder. It got so thick, I started to worry it would bust the drawer. The diner became our resistance HQ. Ranchers, shop owners, old-timers sipping bitter coffee, sharing stories and strategizing. Mrs. Chun dropped a bomb. Marcus, Melissa's husband, had been pressuring the county to reassess our properties at market value. Translation? Raise taxes until we couldn't afford to stay. You could almost smell the corruption. It was thicker than the diesel from the construction crews, beautifying the HOA's own properties. But the real turning point came with the water rights documentation. My great-granddad hadn't just helped build the dam. He'd signed a federal deal, paper yellowed with age, but filed in county and federal archives. Those papers gave our family permanent authority over the water system. If Melissa thought she could bully us out, she was attacking the very people keeping her $2 million investment from sinking. And I don't mean that figuratively. You ever play checkers against someone who knows the rules to chess? That's how it felt. Melissa was 10 steps behind and didn't even know it. But she wasn't about to quit. My property taxes went up sevenfold, from $12,000 to $84,000. That's not a typo. Only mine and 2 other ranch families. At the same time, the HOA passed a rule. Every ranch improvement had to be architecturally reviewed. $5,000 just to fix a fence. 5 more if you wanted to replace a barn door. And who was the only qualified reviewer? Marcus Law Firm, of course. You can laugh, but it wasn't funny at the time. Melissa started parking at the end of my driveway, filming me. Morning after morning, there she was, phone pressed to the windshield. I started taking my coffee inside. That's when I leaned into my real profession. I started running hydro charts and water models on the lake. Late nights, surrounded by dam schematics and flow meters. You know what I found? The lake wasn't just sustained by natural runoff. It was entirely dependent on that dam system my family managed. One twist of the valve, and Lake Serenity would be a muddy ditch in 48 hours. So I pulled the old federal documentation from the National Archives. Yeah, I went that far. Turns out, water rights in the West are gold. And my family's gold mine wasn't for sale. Meanwhile, Emma found records showing Marcus Law Firm had received $50,000 from Mountain Vista Development the same week our taxes were reassessed. "Dad, look at this," she said, scrolling through payment records and real estate auctions. The developer was betting on families like ours losing everything and selling cheap. This wasn't about community standards. It was about buying low and selling high. I took Mrs. Chen's notes and compared them with every complaint, every tax hike, every sudden rule change. The pattern was clear: financial pressure, forced sales, then development. It was all a big, ugly plan. But here's where their plan hit a wall. Every property around the lake was worthless without the dam. The moment I realized that, standing at the controls, hand on the same lever my granddad had used, I understood. This was the insurance policy Samuel Morrison left us. A way to keep our family and the whole valley safe. I started running independent water quality tests using connections for my job. The results? Melissa's own septic system was leaching into the lake. The same lake she'd accused me of polluting. Oh, the taste of poetic justice. Emma, meanwhile, started a campaign online, posting photos of Samuel Morrison building the dam, telling the story of 3 generations keeping Lake Serenity alive. The post took off, thousands of shares from other small towns facing the same kind of squeeze. Melissa tried a publicity stunt, cleanup day. T-shirts, cameras, volunteers cleaning up trash that, curiously, only ever appeared on my side of the property line. I wasn't surprised when the environmental groups who showed up started asking about the history of the lake. They found out real quick the Morrison family had been protecting wildlife and balancing water long before Melissa was worrying about her investment potential. But that wasn't the end of it. Melissa sued me for creating an environmental hazard, painting a picture for the news about outdated agricultural practices threatening the community's natural resources. The local reporter probably had never seen a cow up close, lapped it up. Then came the day of reckoning. My own water quality data, backed by official labs, proved our ranch was actually improving the lake, preventing erosion, filtering runoff, even boosting wildlife. Melissa's property? It was leaking. The data, the photos, the GPS coordinates. By the time I was done, I had a case file that would make a federal prosecutor's mouth water. Let me tell you, environmental lawsuits are double-edged swords. If you want to win, you'd better have clean hands. When someone accuses you of polluting, the first place you look is their backyard. But I kept digging, combing through construction records, dam contracts, anything I could get my hands on. I found something that changed the whole game. My great-granddad had negotiated a clause that, if the dam was tampered with, the federal government could intervene directly. Tampering was a felony, punishable by prison time. I took this info to Emma, who was by now my full-time research partner. She grinned. So, we're not just the caretakers, we're the guardians. She was right. Every property value, every development plan, depended on us keeping the lake alive. At this point, the valley was buzzing. The diner was packed every night with families comparing notes, strategizing. Even the newer residents started asking questions, once they realized Melissa's improvements could end up costing them the lake, too. Melissa, meanwhile, doubled down. She called Channel 7 News, staged a cleanup, recruited a handful of folks to parade around with trash bags and sad faces for the cameras. But it backfired. The real environmental groups saw right through it, and the news started picking up our side of the story. I walked the dam every morning, feeling the weight of responsibility. Sometimes it felt like my great-granddad was there beside me. Not in some mystical way, but in the knowledge that everything he built was for moments like these. If you're still listening, ask yourself, if you were standing at the heart of your family's legacy with everything on the line, would you hold back? Or would you fight with everything you've got, even when it felt like the world was stacked against you? Drop your thoughts below. Because trust me, we're just getting warmed up. I've always believed, somewhere deep down, that if you just keep your head down and do right by people, things will work out. But Whispering Pines was testing that belief every single day. Melissa, Marcus, their developer friends, they kept coming, relentless. Sometimes I wondered if they slept at all, or just dreamed up new ways to push us out. After the environmental lawsuit fizzled, once the real lab results came out and Channel 7 ran that little expose about her septic system, Melissa didn't back off. She escalated. Suddenly, my ranch was under attack in every possible way. Tax assessments kept jumping. Every other week I got another thick envelope, some new rule, some new fee, some new required improvement notice with Marcus' signature at the bottom. It was like playing whack-a-mole with my family's future. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Sometimes, getting backed into a corner is the best thing that can happen. It wakes you up, makes you angry, sure, but it also gets your brain working in ways it never would otherwise. I started sleeping less, working more. Late nights at the kitchen table with maps and manila folders spread everywhere, Emma across from me, headphones on, furiously typing. She became my secret weapon, a one-girl information machine. Social media, legal filings, county records, she tracked every move Melissa made, every company Marcus' law firm was linked to, every shadowy LLC trying to buy up land in the valley. She found payment records, real smoking gun stuff. Marcus' firm getting consulting fees from Mountain Vista Development, always right before a ranch got hit with some new tax bill or code violation. Emma's laptop glowed late into the night. The screen reflected in her determined eyes. "Dad, they're not even subtle," she said once, shaking her head. "It's all here." It hit me, Melissa and Marcus weren't just targeting us for kicks. They were part of something bigger, something cold and corporate. Buy low, squeeze out the originals, build condos, flip for millions. I wasn't just fighting for my family. I was standing in the way of a machine. But we weren't alone. Word got out. Mrs. Chun, Mr. Rodriguez, the Patels, families I'd grown up with, some I'd barely spoken to in years, all started sharing stories. The diner turned into a war room, coffee flowing, voices rising and falling. We mapped the pattern together, laid it out on napkins and notepads. You could see it, a network of pressure points, all designed to break the old guard. I started to feel something I hadn't felt since before the barn came down. Hope. The deeper we dug, the more dirt we found on Melissa's beautification committee. Turns out, half the folks she'd put on the board didn't even live here full-time. Some had never shown up in person, just mailed in votes from California or Colorado. They'd been promised exclusive lake access once Mountain Vista's plan went through. The whole thing stank. Emma, meanwhile, went on the offensive. She built a website, started a hashtag, posted the valley's history. Photos of great-granddad at the dam, old barn-raising parties, Emma as a kid fishing with neighbors. The posts exploded. Ranchers from Idaho to New Mexico chimed in. "We're fighting the same thing here." Suddenly, we were part of something bigger than Whispering Pines. Melissa tried to adapt. She started planting stories in the local paper, framing us as obstacles to progress, painting herself as the visionary misunderstood by the backward locals. There was even an article about the dangers of outdated agricultural practices. I laughed so hard I nearly spit my coffee. Outdated. My family had been protecting this lake longer than her mansion had been a blueprint. But not everyone found it funny. The stress in our house grew heavier. Emma stopped going into town after school. Too many cold stares, too many whispers from the new crowd. Local businesses, ones we'd supported for decades, started reconsidering our accounts. Feed store credit? Frozen. Hardware store couldn't order that part anymore. Even the diner felt different, though the old guard kept our table open. You know what bitterness tastes like? It's not just burnt coffee. It's isolation, knowing people you've helped are now afraid to be seen with you. I'd be lying if I said it didn't eat at me. Some nights, I sat on the porch after Emma went to bed, just staring at the dark water, wondering if we should just walk away. But every morning I got up. I checked the dam. I took notes. I waved at Melissa's Tesla, phone pointed at me like a laser, and sometimes I smiled just to mess with her. If you let people that see you sweat, you're halfway beat already. Then came the vandalism. Gates left open, cattle let out on the road. A couple of hydraulic lines on my tractor slashed. First, I thought it was coincidence. Then Emma found photos on social media. Local teens flashing wads of cash, posting about side jobs. She dug deeper, matched transaction records, and found Mountain Vista was paying out under the table to anyone willing to help speed up improvements. That was the last straw. I installed a surveillance system, sensors, cameras, alarms. Everything I'd learned as a county engineer, I applied at home. One night, Marcus himself showed up at 2 a.m, flashlight in hand, poking around the dam access road. The footage, night vision, crystal clear, caught him trying to break the lock on the gate. The next day, I sent a copy of the video to the sheriff's office and another to the county water district. No words, just a file and a note, essential infrastructure security. After that, everything changed. The county got involved, the feds started sniffing around. See, interfering with critical infrastructure isn't just a local issue. It's federal territory. Serious time if you get caught. Melissa and Marcus didn't realize how deep the water was getting. Word spread through the valley, quiet at first, then loud. Old enemies became allies. The Chens, the Rodriguezes, the Patels, even some of the new folks who just wanted a peaceful retirement. Everyone started pushing back. Melissa's camp shrank fast as people realized what losing the dam would really mean. You ever see a bully lose their audience? It's not pretty. Melissa tried to double down, lawyers, lawsuits, restraining orders. Marcus filed a claim that I was a threat to public safety, tried to get a court order keeping me away from the dam. Joke was on him. The federal agreements my great-grandfather signed meant no local judge could keep me from performing my job. When the county commission got the full story, including the federal statutes, they dropped the whole thing like a hot potato. Then, as if on cue, Melissa showed up on my porch with a briefcase. $500,000 in cash, neat as a banker's smile. She offered it all for the ranch, a chance to start over somewhere more peaceful, she said, as if I was the trouble. Emma stood behind me, silent but shaking. I almost laughed. Instead, I turned on my phone and started recording. Melissa's smile cracked. You're making a mistake. I can ruin you, you know. The threat hung in the air, raw and sharp. I just shook my head. You can't ruin what you don't understand, I said, and closed the door. The very next day, a fresh restraining order arrived. Marcus claimed I'd threatened Melissa's life, said I was capable of shutting down the entire community's water supply in a fit of rage. The hearing was a circus. Melissa wept for the cameras. Her lawyers painted me as a madman with a vendetta against progress. But the evidence was stacked a mile high on my side, documents, surveillance footage, a lifetime of stewardship. Then the state bar opened an investigation into Marcus for conflicts of interest and money laundering. The FBI showed up. Suddenly, the folks who'd been ignoring us wanted to hear our story. Emma, bless her, found her voice. She gave an interview on Channel 7. Looking straight into the camera, saying, they're not just trying to take our land. They're trying to erase who we are, who built this place. Her words went viral. Other communities started reaching out. Turns out, what we'd been fighting wasn't unique. It was everywhere. Federal agents started showing up at HOA meetings. Every move Melissa made was now watched. Our kitchen table turned into a real war room. Maps, timelines, legal strategies. The taste of fear shifted just a little from our house to theirs. And then came the town hall. Whispering Pines gym packed to the rafters. Old-timers, newcomers, media, the whole valley. Melissa walked in late, flanked by lawyers, looking every bit the CEO she wanted to be. She launched into her speech, slides, drama, protecting our community. But nobody was buying it anymore. When my turn came, I didn't say much. Just held up a photo of Samuel Morrison, hands rough and steady, building the dam. He built this for all of us, I said, and every family since has kept it going. Not for profit, for community. The room was silent. Then Agent Martinez from the FBI stood up and read the charges: racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. You could hear the air get sucked out of the room. Melissa cracked. In front of everyone, she let her mask slip, ranting about backwards locals and stupid farmers. She was escorted out, and the applause that followed, it felt like justice. It felt like home, like something real coming back. You ever feel a weight lift you didn't know you'd been carrying? That was me, standing in that gym, Emma at my side, neighbors clapping and whistling not for me, but for everything we'd all built, protected, and saved together. The fight wasn't over yet, but the tide had turned. And for the first time in a long, long time, I looked around and thought, maybe my great-granddad was right. Maybe if you plant your roots deep enough, nothing can pull you out. So what about you? Ever faced a storm and come out stronger? Ever watched your enemy become your greatest teacher? Let me know. Because the real story, the one about how we rebuild, how we heal, well, that's just beginning. 6 months after that wild night in the gym, the valley felt different. Lighter, maybe. Sometimes I'd wake up and just stand by the window, coffee in hand, watching the mist drift off Lake Serenity, and let myself believe it was finally over. Melissa and Marcus were long gone, facing charges in Denver. Their mansion sat empty, the for sale sign fading and crooked, as if the land itself was reclaiming what never belonged. Funny thing about victory. Nobody ever tells you what happens next. There's no fanfare, no parade. The cows still need tending. The pumps still hum at the dam every morning. Bills still show up. Only now the envelopes aren't so thick and the names in the return address don't make my stomach twist. The ranch. Well, we're still here. That's the miracle. I rebuilt the barn, this time with the help of neighbors who'd been on the fence. Some who'd never swung a hammer in their lives. We salvaged what we could, replaced what was lost, and made something better. Not fancier, better. Stronger beams, the old weather vane polished to a shine. Emma played her violin there every evening, music rising up into the rafters, a sound that felt like hope itself. Mrs. Chun, who'd been our unofficial archivist, became county commissioner. I helped her move boxes of notes and legal files into her new office. She'd smile, shake her head. All this, just so we could sell peaches and fix trucks in peace. Huh? I'd laugh, but she was right. The most important battles are sometimes the quietest ones. The diner, the old HQ, felt lively again. Free coffee flowed for weeks after the town hall. Folks brought pie, shared stories, let the nerves unwind a little at a time. The new crowd, the ones who'd stayed, began to blend in. Some even apologized for siding with the HOA, not out of guilt, but out of relief, maybe, that the fear was finally gone. I kept working at the county water district. My colleagues, most of whom had steered clear while the lawsuits raged, started asking me questions again, joking. So, you taking on any new battles, Morrison? I just grinned. Nope. One per lifetime's enough for me. Emma, she bloomed. Her online posts turned into a statewide essay competition win. She got scholarship offers, real ones, from places I'd only ever heard about on TV. Environmental law, water resource engineering. She wants to come back after college, modernize the dam, use solar and smart tech to keep the valley running for another 100 years. The kid's got vision and grit. She's Samuel Morrison's great-great-granddaughter, all right. As for me, well, you want the honest truth? I felt old. Not tired, exactly, just worn, like a pair of boots that's finally been resoled. My hands still work, my back still aches, and I'm grateful for both. But I realized something else too. This fight, it changed us. Not just me or my family, but the whole valley. We learned that you can't sit quiet and hope things you'll blow over. Sometimes you have to plant your feet, grab a shovel or a manila folder, and say, not this time. The Morrison Family Water Stewardship Foundation became a reality, built from settlement money wrung out of insurance policies and development cash. We used it to teach other towns about water rights, federal protections, and how to fight back when outsiders try to rewrite your story. The first time I spoke at a meeting in Wyoming, explaining the legal tricks we'd learned, I felt the weight of all those ranchers before me. Quiet folks who never had a lawyer, who trusted in handshake deals and neighborly decency. If only it were always that simple. Heritage Day, now an annual thing, turned into a real festival. Old-timers, newcomers, ranchers, artists, and teachers all together under the shade of rebuilt barns. We had barbecues, bluegrass, workshops on water conservation. Tourists came from miles away, wanting to see the famous lake that nearly disappeared. They snapped photos, bought jam from the Patels, fresh eggs from the Rodriguezes, and left with stories that sounded, I'm sure, half made up. But it was all true. Every last bit. And you know what's wild? Lake Serenity became a protected demonstration watershed. College kids showed up with notebooks, environmental agencies sent grants, and Harvard Law, believe it or not, added our case to their rural law curriculum. Imagine that. Samuel Morrison, son of a dirt farmer, part of Harvard's syllabus. He would have laughed himself silly. Mrs. Chen's transparency policies started making a difference, too. No more backroom deals, no more sudden tax spikes or secret board meetings. She posted every agenda, every vote, every budget, right up on the county website. Some folks grumbled, but most felt a little safer knowing sunlight was finally the rule. Sometimes I get questions from folks outside the valley, ranchers, retirees, city kids dreaming of rural paradise. They want to know, how do you keep from getting pushed out? How do you fight back against money, against power? I tell them, document everything. Know your history. Don't fight alone. And never, ever underestimate the power of community, no matter how small. And the barn, oh the barn. It's got scars, sure, but it stands stronger than before. Every time Emma's bow slides across those strings, every note echoes with a memory of what we nearly lost, and what we kept. One more thing. The story doesn't just end with me. I met someone. Yeah, didn't expect that either. Agent Sarah Martinez, the same FBI agent who read out the charges at the town hall, moved to Billings after the case wrapped. She came out to visit the ranch one weekend, curious about the legendary barn. We talked, we laughed, we fixed fences and swapped stories. Before long, we realized a fight had given us both something neither of us knew we needed. I married her the next spring, right there in the barn. Neighbors, federal agents, ranchers, and teachers, everyone under one roof, celebrating not just a wedding, but a kind of homecoming. And the future? It's not perfect. There'll always be another Melissa, somewhere, with more money than sense. But now we know how to stand together. And that's something worth passing down. So, let me turn it around, friend. What would you have done if it was your family? Your land? Would you have fought, or would you have packed up and left? And if you've got your own story, a struggle, a small victory, even a bitter defeat, share it. Let's remind each other that these things matter, that small towns and old barns and stubborn people still have a place in this world. You've stuck with me this far, so I'll leave you with this. Never give up on your story. You might just find it's the one worth telling, after all. If you're still here, maybe you're asking yourself, did it really change anything? Was all that fighting worth it? I get it. Sometimes I ask myself the same thing. It's not easy to measure victory in a place where the cows still wander the pasture and the sun rises just the same as it did before the trouble started. But here's what I know. The valley's still whole. The barn still stands. And when Emma plays her violin at sunset, I don't just hear music. I hear a future we almost lost. You want to know the best part? The lessons we learned didn't just stay in Whispering Pines. Word got out. Other towns called our new foundation. Folks I'd never met, Wyoming, Idaho, the Dakotas, asking, how do we protect our water, our land, our stories? Emma and I drove to meet them, sometimes for long weekends, sometimes just for an afternoon, sharing our playbook, our scars, and our hope. The look on their faces when they realize they weren't alone, that right there, it makes every sleepless night, every bit of heartache, worth it. And it's not just the big stuff. Little things change too. The annual Heritage Day Festival? It exploded. Last year, we had 15,000 visitors. 15,000. All coming to hear how a dusty old barn and a handful of stubborn families outlasted the money men. We taught workshops on water rights, sustainable farming, and the kind of neighborly courage you can't fake. Families took home more than honey and jam. They took home a story they'd tell for years. The lake, once almost lost to greed, became a living classroom. Kids dipped nets into the water, catching tadpoles, measuring clarity, learning from Emma and the college students she mentors. Mrs. Chun runs transparency workshops for local governments. Even some of the new arrivals, the ones who at first just wanted a quiet view, pitched in. Turns out, once you see what it takes to keep a community alive, it's hard to look away. Sarah, my wife, settled in like she'd always belonged. She left the bureau, started teaching at the local college, and together we ran legal clinics for families fighting their own versions of Mountain Vista. On slow mornings, we'd walk the fence line, hand in hand, talking about how life turns. Who could have guessed a federal case and a barn raising would lead to love? Sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor. But you know what? They say God works in mysterious ways. Emma's away at school now, Montana State, top of her class, studying water resources and law. She calls home most nights, always ending with "Tell the lake good night for me." She wants to come back, bring solar, smart pumps, new science. She wants the kids after her to grow up knowing how to defend what matters: land, water, memory. The Morrison story will live on, not as legend, but as living, breathing community. Me? I still get up before dawn. Still walk the dam. Sometimes I just stand there, hands on the old levers, and breathe in that cold, pine-scented air. I think of Samuel Morrison, my granddad, my dad, all the hands that kept this place alive. I wonder what they'd think if they could see how it turned out. I hope they'd be proud. Sometimes I think I can feel them at my shoulder, especially on the hardest days. Let me tell you something, friend. No matter where you live, no matter how small your corner of the world seems, what you do matters. The stand you take, the stories you keep, the neighbors you fight for. These things ripple out in ways you can't always see. People will try to tell you, it's just progress, or you can't fight City Hall. But the truth is, power is just a story told by those with the loudest microphones, until somebody stands up and tells a truer one. So, if you ever find yourself up against something that feels too big, too powerful, too crooked to fight, remember this story. Remember that a handful of ranchers, a high school violinist, a retired teacher with a box of notes, and an engineer with more stubbornness than sense held off a multi-million-dollar company, changed the law and saved a way of life. I want to hear from you. Yeah, you. Have you fought your own HOA nightmare? Have you stood up for what's right, even when it felt impossible? Drop your story in the comments below. You might just help someone else find their courage. Or maybe you just need to know you're not alone. Either way, let's keep this conversation going. And if you got anything out of my story, share it. With a friend, a neighbor, your own town council. Subscribe so you'll know when the next story drops. Because trust me, there's always another fight coming. And you never know who's going to need a little backup. Here's my final lesson. The one I wish I'd known before it all started. Legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you fight for, protect, and, if you're lucky, pass on. You don't need a dam or a barn or a lake. Just stand up, speak up, and never underestimate the strength of a community that refuses to be erased. The sun's setting now, spilling gold across Lake Serenity, the new barn casting a long shadow. I stand with Sarah at my side, Emma's music still echoing in my memory. And I think, yeah, this was worth every hard day. So what story will you fight for? What legacy will you leave behind? Let me know, because, after all, that's how the next chapter always begins.